Yeah. Issue? Maybe. Maybe not.
Potentially.
Maybe not. Nope, it's not an issue. Playing ya, just playing ya. Hey, listen, for those of you out there that have had the good fortune of following this program, you're more than well aware that for months, a long time ago, actually, probably at least as early as 2/3 of the season in, maybe even sooner, I talked about goaltenders with the Maple Leafs needing to be turned into assets. As it turned out, they were. Not only were they turned into assets, they picked up an asset at no cost other than salary, which is a good thing. You know, that's getting something for money, but for nothing when it comes to the asset drawer, right? So now my next prediction is, here's my next prediction, Aaron, and I don't know if it'll come true, but it's based on the same thinking process. The Leafs just signed a second young Russian goalie. Is that a coincidence or is there a pattern here? And here's how I identify the pattern, Aaron. If you're a 40-year-old or what he is, 38-year-old goalie right now, he'll be 38 when he starts the season. He'll be 41 if he lives out this contract, correct?
Yeah,
now,
that sounds about right.
The Leafs have been paying people, assistant general manager, blah, 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 all these employees that the Leafs organization has that other teams don't. In reality, in honesty, they don't have as a top-heavy a management team. No one does like Toronto does, I don't think. Anyway, to start with that premise, I'm off on a good start, right?
I think so.
So now, Aaron, imagine you start bringing veteran players in and you have an unofficial agreement with them that as soon as they retire their last season, they end up working for the organization, being able to earn some money, not as a player, but as something else. In the case of Bobrovsky, a goalie coach. Now, if you're going to spend money on people that are working on the management side of it, wouldn't it be nice if you could use that as leverage to bring players in to finish their career here?
I mean, I can certainly see the appeal behind doing something like that.
Certainly, it doesn't work for every player. It doesn't work for every player, right?
No, but it's definitely an approach that you can take. I can see I can see a certain player who was born out Mississauga way, turning into something like that for sure. There are a couple other players that are slightly longer in the tooth that can do that. Certainly, if you look at previous players, there's no dearth of them whatsoever in the Maple Leafs organization as it currently stands. So it's definitely something that's appealing. And the whole idea behind that too is whoever you bring in at whatever position you bring them in at, they're never going to have to pay for another beer for the rest of their lives, because we love our old players, regardless of how they left or how they came back or the position they currently enjoy. We love them. And, the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment has a great habit of taking guys that weren't necessarily all that good in the first place and making them gods among men when it came to fans. There's a lot of players from the 80s and 90s who may not necessarily have been the greatest players, but are still beloved here in Toronto because of the exposure that they've had through the organization. So
just to bring in one of the viewers that made an interesting comment, I'm kind of laughing inside thinking about it. Riley's like an ex-wife that won't sign the divorce papers. Thank you, Patrick, for that. I really appreciate it.
That's certainly one way to look at it.
Well, there is the we don't want you time to split up air about the whole situation. There's no doubt about that, right? So Patrick's onto something there. Characterizing it that way is what it is. It's characterizing it that way. But that's an interesting proposition, and basically, I think Nyes is starting to fit into that category as well, to be honest with you. I mean, does he get the feeling that he's not wanted or what? Like, how would you feel if you were Matthew Nyes?
I would genuinely be confused because one day I'm supposedly at the door, the next day I'm a cornerstone of the future. The day after that, it's, oh, aren't we lucky that he doesn't have a no movement clause? And then there's the, well, he could still be on Matthews' wing. So there's a lot of push and pull and tugging going on here, but not a lot of definite direction.
Absolutely. This conversation can lead very easily into somebody like Wickenheiser, who was an assistant GM, posted on her Instagram, I guess, her Instagram account, that I'm no longer with the Maple Leafs. Is this something that is understandable? No, I don't understand it. Is it something that's palatable? Of course it's palatable. I mean, what do you and I know about her contribution to the organization? And what do we know about the plans that the organization, the new leaders of the organization have in filling all these spots below them, right? The tentacles that make up the Maple Leaf organization. So I'm not surprised that she's gone. And I don't, Aaron, I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm not surprised, because every time a new leader comes in, they want to bring their own people in. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's a tendency to want to surround yourself by your guys or girls, as the case may be. In this particular case, it doesn't look like Dr. Wickenheiser was a fit for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
And I know that she had indicated that she'd had a lot of conversations with Sheikha over the past few days, and it didn't seem like at that point in time she was a fit. And as she indicated in her Instagram post, it became clear that his leadership group envisioned a different path. She did say that she was extremely happy to have worked with the team over the past 8 years. As it is, she's well set up. She's not going to be hurting for a job. She is, after all, a doctor now, which means that she can pretty much write her own ticket outside of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment
And her own
Rogers.
prescription.
Exactly, but there may be something else for her in the future. I do know that Sheikha said that as part of our ongoing evaluation of the organization, they had to make some difficult decisions to part ways with some valued colleagues. And, the fact that he's not looking down on them in any way or anything like that, it's, your particular skill set wasn't suited to where we were going as a company. So, at the end of the day, you got to fish or cut bait. In this case, they decided to cut bait. So.
Well, every business management team in sports is no different. Has a chain of command, right? And
Yep.
Usually the chain of command that starts at the top always likes looking down at people they brought in, and they feel comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be, I guess, as a manager, do you want to be the person with the least experience within the organization if you're the top guy? No, you're going to want to bring people in that are, let's be honest here, and I'll be boldly frank, very candid as well. You want people working for you who are indebted to you.
Yeah.
You're the one that hired them. I mean, let's be real here, right? But there is a common sense approach as well to the way the management team is being built. I like the move that Gruden ends up behind the bench. I think that's half reward and half a smart move for a guy who had some success within the organization with players who, admittedly, the majority of them are never going to be mainstays with the Maple Leafs. But
right.
There are a few of them that may, right? And he'll know who they are. He'll be able to know the difference better than anybody, having been down there. And Stevie Sullivan now has a guy that he can talk to as the new head coach, because he's been hired. On the plus side of the equation, he wasn't deleted, but I guess he was. He was on the coaching staff behind the bench, but he went from being behind the bench to behind the bench of the Marlies as opposed to the Leafs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they always knew that they were going to be going with Hiller for that particular position. So it did make sense to at least give Stevie a promotion. And while it may not look like it, being the head coach of an AHL franchise, it's still a head coaching position. which is ahead of where he was with the Maple Leafs, where he was just an assistant. So, also good to see Mark Giordano is being brought in as a Marlies assistant coach as well. I know that he did spend some time down there when he was with the Leafs, helping mentor some of the kids on the way through. And you know that his playing style, I don't know if that's something that he's looking to pass on, but it'll certainly make things more interesting down there if they do start to play a slightly more Mark Giordano-esque style, for sure.
I think that the other thing, Aaron, that I think is very important, in fact, maybe even a little more important, is his leadership skills. He proved he
100%.
had in the National Hockey League, right? So as a player, he was a captain. As a coach, like a captain, he's a leader. And like a captain, he's somebody that can be there for the players that he is responsible for and to. So, yeah, those are two good moves. I think they're two good moves. It is kind of, if one looks at it, like if you take a quick look, you might say with all the firings, the Leafs are going through a complete overhaul. But at the same time, they're not going over a complete overhaul because, as you just mentioned, the two guys now in charge, two of the first guys that are in charge of helping the Marlies repeat as a champion, have been in the organization for a while. So they haven't flushed everybody out of the organization. There seems to be, all right, we'll keep this guy, but we'll keep him and we'll put him in this position. We'll keep this guy and we'll give him a little leg up. We'll say, okay, you've been around now. You've been sort of on coach-ish position, and now you are a coach. So there is some continuity, and I believe that continuity is necessary. Consistency, continuity, and being not set in your ways, but set within a lineup and giving a lineup a chance to grow together and not make so many changes within the group, which makes it harder for that cohesion that's necessary to be successful and align responsibilities in a better way, right? Because when you take somebody out of an organization, then just like what happened with the Leafs with Marner, right? You take Marner out. Now, what do we do about the team the way it was, and it was okay? Now, how do we fix this? How do we make this work, right? So there is there's a lot of importance in continuity when it comes to an organization, but there has to be symbiosis as well. And when a new general manager comes in, his symbiosis is the boss. So if you don't have symbiosis with him, adios amigo.
But and I think that was part of the expectation when Keefe was elevated to the Leafs coach a few years back as well, right? Because he'd come up with some of the boys. They won the Calder Cup in 2018, and the expectation was that Keefe would be able to continue to work with those individuals as well as with the younger Leafs players and sort of mold them for the future. Now, unfortunately, I don't think they approached that 100% the right way. There were some questionable signings that were made by Dubas along the way, and contracts that were given out that probably shouldn't have been, which led to the current situation that we're in, based on them trying to rebuild after that bit of a misstep by giving Dubas power a little too early, and shuffling off Lou Lamoriello before he was potentially able to teach Dubas as much as he wanted to know or needed to know. But certainly the expectation now is with these characters that they've got behind the bench, and the elevation of Gruden to the main staff as well, is certainly something that they've definitely tried before.
Right. And I believe and that there is something to be said for symbiosis between a coach and a general manager.
Oh, 100%.
As there is between a coach and his assistant coaches, right? So the question is Hiller 100% behind the fact that Gruden comes, or is it something that the Leaf organization decided to give a promotion, blah, blah, blah? That's important too, because one of the lessons I think that you didn't say, but one of the mistakes that was made while Dubas was the GM is that he didn't give Babcock the respect to give him what he felt he needed to coach. And that's because if you're a general manager, you think you know better what a coach needs, right? Which is understandable. but it's not true. At the end of the day, you've got just like every relationship in sports, whether it be the ownership, a president of an organization, whether it's a coach, whether it's a goaltender, whether it's a forward, whether it's a line mate, you each have to work to make each other have the opportunity to be successful. You got to contribute to that, the person next to you being successful, the person above you being successful, the person below you being successful. In that way, success will come. And because Babcock was already, just by the way things went, and Dubas didn't give Babcock what he wanted, which was a little more sandpaper out front, a little more sandpaper on defense. Basically, Babcock went public. And therein lies the problem, whether isn't this giving each other the opportunity to be successful both ways. I'm not here just, I'm not dumping on Dubas. I'm also dumping on Babcock because you say something publicly that your boss isn't going to give you. Well, here we go. The relationship starts getting strained, right? And that becomes something the players understand. And if you got players on your roster, that aren't really happy with you, you just greased yourself out of town. So what I'm saying is that relationship, most of us, at least I knew it was doomed. Now, the question here is to bring it to where we are today. Hiller's got a plan. He's got a plan that he has to work with Sundin and of course the GM Cheka. They all have to be on the same page. They all have to buy in to working together and making each other successful. And I seriously say that success isn't just from the top down. Success also comes from the bottom up. It's the communication. That's the definition of symbiosis. So we're going to see with Sullivan as the head coach with the Marlies, there's a little bit of continuity there because he has a little bit of an understanding who the players are there, and also understands what's happening with the Leafs as well a little bit. He understands the team a little bit. He's part of the organization. Now, new guys are coming in. You got Alfredson. You talk about him. That's great. But the biggest issue I think the Leafs have to deal with, and I know you want to talk about this, is salary compliance.
Yeah, that is a big thing for the Maple Leafs. As it currently stands, they are $2.75 million over the salary cap. Now, they are actually one of two teams that are currently over their salary cap. Vegas is the other one, and they happen to be $8.61 million over the salary cap. So it's a bit of an interesting situation here. Yeah, it's not a backbreaking overage.
Not the Leaf one.
No, it should be very simple for them to become compliant.
That can sit out and they'll be fine. What is Vegas?
Exactly. and that's going to be Max Domi moving to the long-term injured reserve. His salary cap hit is $3.75 million per season, so it's not going to be that hard to get him out of there.
Other words, Robidas Island.
Exactly. And here's the thing, though. I mean, like, you look at a lot of guys that are retiring, or a lot of people that do end up going on long-term injured reserve for that sort of thing. Their contracts are structured in such a way that management kind of knows what's coming, so they can sort of weight their contracts accordingly to take better advantage of it as players get older. So him going to LTIR at the beginning of the year is dead simple. There's a couple roster transactions that the Leafs can do, sending people down. Currently, Toronto has a 23-man roster, but there are several different circumstances that can come into play leading up to a new season, and injuries could definitely go along with that. Another way for them to get camp compliant is to move the $15 million that they currently have sitting there in Nyes and Riley. Those are two guys that you can ship out, bring less money in. And the fourth way that they can actually become salary cap compliant is basically do nothing. Because, with the way things go in the NHL and the speed at which they play and the size of the players, injuries, stuff in preseason, stuff in training camp, all of that can change in the blink of an eye anyways. So.
Yeah. And then, there's also that symbiosis in this case. And in this case, it is the Sundin Domi, young Domi. I love you, buddy. You're like my hero. Gets a phone call from Sonny. Listen, buddy, we're going to have to sit you out for a little while. You're what we're hearing from your doctors. We think you should make sure you're 100% healthy. We don't want to take any chances. Okay, Mats.
No, I hear you. I'm ready to sit for as long as you need me.
This is again the symbiosis that we're talking about that's required for every organization to be successful. There has to be a communication line up and down, both directions. All right, let's go to the NBA, and the Raptors are in the process of trying to make a trade. They're attempting to make a trade, but hold up, we got an issue here. Apparently, there's a contract issue, and that a contract issue now may lead to punishment. And the Raptors have acknowledged that they're willing to be the victims of that punishment. Aaron, tell us more. Tell us more.
So for the past 10 months, the LA Clippers have been being under investigation by the NBA. Kawhi Leonard actually fired his old manager, Uncle Dennis. Uncle Dennis is the guy that wanted him to get a percentage of the Toronto Maple Leafs when playing for the Raptors, which is strictly against the CBA. He also wanted Kawhi to be able to take advantage of no-show promo deals. By that, I mean get signed to a multi-million-dollar contract to act as a sponsor, but not have to do the pesky things like shooting commercials or meeting people. Now, when Kawhi went to the Clippers, they wanted to pay him an additional $28 million, but unfortunately, we're up against the salary cap. So it seemed kind of convenient that Kawhi managed to secure himself a sponsorship deal for a green banking company called Aspiration that mysteriously went bankrupt shortly after he got his $28 million. Now, it turns out that Joe Sandberg at Aspirations was actually running a bit of a fraud scheme. So while Kawhi apparently did get paid, sophisticated investors, financial institutions, and business partners all got defrauded by Sandberg, who's currently serving up to 14 years in prison. When the trade was initially announced, the NBA had told the Raptors, hey, yeah, sure, we can do that for you if you'd like. Just be aware that you're going to be held financially responsible should there be any blowback from our investigation. To which the Raptors said, well, why don't we put it off for a little bit longer until we know the results of the investigation, and then we can determine if it's still worth our while to bring Kawhi in.
Yeah, so the question is, will he be suspended? And how long will he be suspended? Play all year anyway. There's talk that his suspension may be like 20 games, something like that. Well, he'll spend the season not playing 20 games, not playing planned 20 games.
Here's the other thing. The NBA could also decide that Kawhi's contract with the LA Clippers is rendered null and void as a result of the investigation, which means Toronto would get him, but he's a free agent. So, there's that whole chestnut.
He says he wants to play in Toronto. He was there at KL's one-day signing. He was there. And the reason I say KL is because Kawhi Leonard is KL as well. So, and he was there for that. And I got to say, the fact that he was there was nice. The fact that he wants to be a Raptor is nice. But he does have this cloud around him that speaks to this guy's shady. But it's all business shady. He seems to be a great player that the Raptors think they want to see if they can run it back one more time. And with who they've got on the team, their number one player will work well with him. This would be a really good defense that the Raptors would have, and it will elevate them to real competition to represent the East in the NBA championship. So it's something that they're looking forward to.
Oh, for sure. And, this is one of those situations where I really do hope it does work out, because I'd like to see them be able to run it back.
Talk to me about this new guy that the Raptors signed, 7 feet tall.
Yeah. So he's a Big Ten forward. He averaged 16.8 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, and 1.8 BPG in the Big Ten. We are talking about a guy by the name of Nate Bittle. That's Bittle. He's 7 foot 250. He used to play for the Oregon Ducks and was a standout player in his final season. Now, a 5-year college career doesn't always suggest that someone will be successful in the NBA, but Biddle's size and his ability in the paint certainly give him a chance. Now, obviously, you can't teach height, but his shot blocking numbers through his collegiate career suggest a player who has the right instincts to protect the rim. He's not a terrible three-point shooter at 32.8% in his college career. He's currently got a 10-game. He's currently got a 10-game deal as we come into the developmental season here. So we'll have to see how he does. If his numbers translate, that'll be awesome.
The summer league started, and this is a great way to find out how good a player is. And this is where all the draft players play as well once they sign. So yeah, you've got to step up in knowing what this guy's all about. The Blue Jays $500 million Vladimir Guerrero. He's not as productive as he's been in the past. What's the concern, Aaron?
Well, the Blue Jays are 28th out of 30 teams in baseball in OPS by their first baseman. 30th in home runs, 24th in wins above replacement, and 28th in batting runs above average. That's not Charlie McAdoo's fault. That's the guy that they've signed to help take a little bit of a load off Vladdy. The real issue is all 6 of Guerrero's home runs this season have come on the road. He hasn't had a homer in 190 plate appearances at Rogers Center. Now, that's not just shocking. It's kind of crushing a Blue Jays team with World Series dreams. They were 17-4 when he went deep at home last year, counting the postseason. There were 7-1 whenever Vladdy homered anywhere in October. He's been voted into the All-Star game again, which is I don't think a lot of people really feel it's on merit. It's more based on nostalgia. Certainly, there's no recency bias tainting this because he's done diddly over squat for the Jays offensively this season to still get in. The good news is, as we mentioned earlier in the week, he is actually going to be taking some time at the Blue Jays training facility in Dunedin to get his back looked at. So that's at least a start.
Yeah, physical issues are a problem. Staying with the Blue Jays, Dylan Cease, he had a no-hitter going, Aaron.
Yeah, had 11 strikeouts and 1 hit allowed in 8 innings pitched. They were way up, way late, and unfortunately just couldn't manage to close it out. He's actually had a really good season. The fact that he's changed his lip fuzz to keep things slightly more fresh has also been awesome. It's also rendered all of the bobbleheads they gave out completely out of date, so they're more collectible now. But yeah, he was given the mound in the 9th inning with the green light to complete the no-hitter, but then Ramos unfortunately managed to get a hit out of it all. With Wednesday's efforts, he's managed to lower his ERA to 2.56. The Jays are now 11 games behind the first-place Tampa Bay Rays in the AL East at 44-49. The hope is by the end of this next stretch of games, they'll be back at 500. But their best shot at getting back to the World Series looks like it's going to have to be the wild card.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's their pitching as well. When the season started, on paper, they would have had a really good pitching staff, but I don't think we have to remind everybody about how many injuries and a lot of the reasons why the pitchers did not pan out the way it was hoped. Let's talk about tennis, and let's talk about Dabrowski and Brazil's Stephanie in Wimbledon women's.
So Ottawa's Gabriela Dabrowski and Brazil's Luisa Stefani have advanced to the 3rd Grand Slam women's doubles semifinal for the year after winning 6-1, 6-2 over Katarina Peter and Anna Stishkova of Czechia on Wednesday at Wimbledon. Dabrowski and Stephanie, they are the 2nd seeds at the grass court major, have yet to drop a set at the tournament and have held their opponents to 2 or fewer games won in 6 of the 8 sets that they've played. They've combined for an effective service game, winning 78% of total service points and not facing break. Dabrowski and Stefani have been absolutely on fire this year. They're going to be facing Shuyo Aoyama and Enshuo Yang at the All England Club. They've had 3 tournament wins this season and are looking for their first Grand Slam final appearance after losing to Siniakova and Townsend at the French Open semifinals and falling to Danilina and Krunic in the Final Four at the Australian Open. So best of luck to them. We'll be keeping tabs on that and reporting back in the new week.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the World Cup.
So in a game that was actually a lot harder out than it seemed, Les Bleus finally managed to get a win, 2-0 over Morocco, behind goals from Kylian Mbappe and Ousmane Dembele. Just finishing actually a few minutes before we actually began today, Spain put the chokehold on Belgium and managed to win their game as well. So that side of the bracket is set. It's going to be interesting to see what comes up over the rest of the weekend. We have the rest of the games going Saturday and Sunday.
Absolutely. That's going to be interesting. Let's go to hockey here in Canada. Let's start with the Habs. They hired a former Leaf assistant who was also the head coach in Detroit.
Yeah. Barely 24 hours after Derek Lalonde was dismissed from his assistant coaching role by the Toronto Maple Leafs, Eric Engels had reported that the 53-year-old was being hired by the Montreal Canadiens in the same role. He also revealed that Lalonde would be replacing Montreal's Trevor Letowski, who had decided to leave the bench to spend more time with his family. Letowski's departure from Martin St. Louis' coaching staff isn't good news. He was St. Louis' second in command, and the rare times the bench boss had to leave, he was the one that was left in charge. When Eric Raymond left the coaching staff for Montreal last season, it seemed to hit the bench boss particularly hard. Hopefully this one stings a little less since it's Letowski's old decision as opposed to being removed by outside forces. Lalonde spent the last season on Craig Berube's staff in Toronto. Spends part of 3 seasons behind the Detroit Red Wings bench as a head coach, where he won 89 of 198 games and missed the playoffs in the 2 seasons he completed while he was there. He did serve as an assistant coach under John Cooper for 4 seasons. So after
John Cooper.
Yep. And that's 608 games behind an NHL bench, which is more experience than Martin St. Louis has had. Martin has only been there for 365 games.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, when it comes to the Sens, they lost Alfredson, a hometown hero, if you will, but also they lost Tkachuk. He was their captain. That means there's a question: who's going to be their next captain, Aaron?
Well, to start the season, probably one of the easiest things to do would be to nominate the 5th-ranked option. That's the easiest one. It's nobody. They did actually go without a captain for 3 years after trading Erik Karlsson back in 2018. Thomas Chabot is another option. He's been with the Senators longer than any other active player. He now leads all current Senators with 569 games played, 11th most in franchise history, just 3 behind Tkachuk. Like Tkachuk, Chabot has 2 years remaining on his contract, which is worth $8 million-ish per season. He's worn an A for years. He's universally respected in the room, and he's been through both the darkest years of the rebuild and the club's return to playoff hockey. I guess the only real question here is whether or not Thomas is going to be with them for the long term. The other one is Claude Giroux. With his re-signing on Tuesday, there is a very definite possibility that he could. But the club still needs another year, maybe 2, to get their handle on Chabot's intentions, which leads us to option number 2 and option number 1, Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson. Now, if you're like a lot of hockey fans and you believe that your best player should be your captain, that really brings it down to Stützle and Sanderson. Both are 24, both with top 5 draft picks. Both have become exactly the players that the Senators hoped they would be. The question is, how well can they lead? They generally seem to be well respected in the room. Sanderson already carries himself like a captain. He leads by example. And he's the player Travis Green chucks over the boards every time there's an important face-off or an important defensive zone draw. So those are a couple things to consider there when it comes to who's their next captain should be.
Absolutely. For me, I'm not a big fan of the best player, and that's in quotes, best player, being the captain, because for me, it depends what makes them the best player. if it's just their talent, that to me doesn't help in the leadership part of the equation.
Right.
You need somebody. You need somebody that shows. You know, I think we saw an example of what I'm talking about through the back door. Former Leaf coach said the heart and soul of the Maple Leafs, the guy that motivated, the guy that was the energy, was Marner. That was, to me, I don't know, Aaron, it wasn't about Marner. That statement wasn't about Marner for Leaf fans. That statement was about, what about Matthews? What about Nylander? That's what that statement said to me. There was no leadership left behind, so it went with Marner. There wasn't any in Toronto, and no one's going to argue with me, I don't think, that the two best players on the Leafs right now, or at least last year, let's say last year, because right now we really don't know because we're entering into a new season, would have been Nylander and Matthews, right? And one of them's wearing the C, but I don't think he's the leadership type. He's a guy who I don't know, just this is when I say the best player isn't necessarily the guy you want to have as captain. And the proof is in the pudding. When he got hurt and nobody came to help him, that's not a good sign. When he was thrown around like a rag doll a few years ago in the playoffs and nobody did anything, that's not a good sign. That tells you something. So at the end of the day, the Senators have to have somebody be the captain who the rest of the team can rally behind. They don't have to be rah-rah on the ice type thing. They don't have to be rah-rah in the locker room, the dressing room, but they have to play like it's rah-rah. When he goes, they go right behind him. And that's what the captain has to do. I know, because of one of the things teams love doing, Aaron, you and I both know it's true, that a great player, they want to make him feel important. They give him the captain's the C, just because he's their best player, not because it surely isn't just because they're a leader, because not every great high-scoring player is a great leader. I wish they were, but they're not. And I hope the Sens make the right decision.
I certainly hope they do as well, because there's a lot more riding on this than people would expect.
Absolutely. And then you've got Hellebuck who wanted to go to Buffalo. Aaron, what's up with that? That would have been an interesting move.
Yeah, apparently he was ready to join them too, and it was one of his preferred destinations. It sounds like the Sabres have goalie depth, but they don't have the star power in that Hellebuck would have provided. And talks seem to be going really, really well, but it sounded like trade details specifically were the problem. Like Buffalo was like, no, if we're giving you the 4th overall pick for Connor Hellebuck, we need you to send us back the 8th overall pick, which is where Winnipeg fell to. Now, Buffalo basically only wanted to allow the Jets a bit of a move up the draft board, not an additional first-round pick. The Jets were wanting 2 picks in the top 10. Honestly though, I'm puzzled.
I don't blame Winnipeg.
Not in the slightest.
That was a dumb offer by Buffalo. It wasn't a serious offer, Aaron.
Yeah, because you know what? Honestly, for them, Hellebuck would be a huge difference maker.
You're talking about the top goalie in the league for a couple of years, and you're saying that flipping draft picks isn't good enough? You're saying it's not good enough? Come on. I mean, I would have said, and I would have expected it. I would have said, you know what? I want that pick, and I want one of the goaltenders. That's what I would have said. I would have said, give me one. And they probably, and Aaron, I don't doubt that Winnipeg did that they said, we want that. We want to flip draft picks, but we want one of your goaltenders. It wouldn't have surprised me that they would have done that. It would have offered that. And any reasonable thinking person would have said, you're getting a really good goalie. Doesn't matter which other goalie you give up. You're getting the best one out of the trade. Stop whining. Oh, Buffalo. Just when they start doing things right, they do things silly. But, that's to be expected with them. The Flames, they signed Nemitz. Good signing. I hope this one doesn't turn into the one with the trade from Florida. I hope this kid stays, and I hope he's happy and is what Calgary hopes he can be.
Well, Simone Nemec is still really, really young. He's only 22. They've now signed him to a 5-year contract worth $36.25 million. Carries an average annual value of $7.25 million and keeps the second overall pick under control through the 2030-31 season. Now, they got him just before the trade deadline. He is expected to play a significant role on a retooled Flames blue line. He's coming off the best offensive campaign of his NHL career. He finished the 2026 season with 11 goals and 15 assists for 26 points in 68 games. He was second overall in the 2022 NHL draft at 6'1" and 200. He's a right shot blue liner who combines mobility, vision, and poise with the puck, making him basically at this point the key component in Calgary's long-term plans.
Let's talk about the Oilers and Babcock's assessment of McDavid.
So Babcock, as everybody knows, likes to push buttons. As part of one of the conditions to him signing there, he sat down with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman and hit them with the hard truth. The two best players on the roster share the blame for why this team hasn't won a Stanley Cup. Babcock apparently told McDavid and Draisaitl directly that they'd been as much a part of Edmonton's problems as anybody else. It was a bold move, but the strategy was simple. If Babs is going to be pushing these guys during the 26-27 season, he needs to know right now how much crap he can shovel onto these guys before they start to push back. And according to reports, neither player pushed back. They both said, yeah, you're right. So, it's one of those things where the Oilers have marched to the beat of McDavid and Draisaitl's drum that, to a point that's going to continue, but Babcock wants to spread the wealth, not give it all to two players taking up $26.5 million of the cap this particular season.
I'm making an assumption, Aaron. My assumption is this. My assumption is that Babcock is telling them what he told them, and they weren't surprised by it. Maybe they might even have been forewarned. And they said, yeah, you're right. You're right. That sets up the rest of the team. There's no one else on the team that can say, I don't deserve to be criticized. So the table has been set where Babcock's going to be turned loose on players. And basically this was a thumbs up from the two top players on the team to say, we're ready to be criticized positively. Let's not forget that. So hopefully we're talking about constructive criticism, which Babcock has danced on a line on that doesn't stay within the context of constructive criticism. So we'll see. So the door is open for constructive criticism. The two best players in Oiler Town have done that. And I hope it works out for them. They've got 2 years now with the big guy. And McDavid, there's rumors going around. I don't know if you've heard the rumors that there's a super team being pondered, one that has McDavid and Matthews on the same team, and it happens to be in Toronto. Apparently, the agent, who's the agent for both those guys, and by the way, also Werenski. Maybe in the future there might be the three of them together on one team. Basketball is basketball, but hockey pays attention. And if you're big stars and you want to win, you're going to do whatever you can to win. And we've seen that with the American Olympic guys, right? So we know that players are willing to, let's see if we can make it happen for us, right? That's basically where now hockey players are at. They're at that basketball mentality where they're going, I'm not just going to go somewhere. I want to go somewhere with someone. I want to go somewhere with someone that helps me win. Now, the problem within hockey, trying to do what they do in basketball, you get 2-3 guys together to go on a team that there's only 5 guys on the court. It's a little different. On the boards.
It's definitely going to make things more interesting. I can guarantee that. It's one of those situations now where you've got to make your bed and lie in it. So
yeah,
we'll see where it goes.
there's a lot of history here. There are a lot of players who have not won a Stanley Cup, but have been the best to ever play. And no one can fault McDavid on wanting to win. and whatever it takes for him to win, if he can make it happen, he's going to try and make it happen. And anyone who begrudges him that can begrudge him it. But I personally, I've seen what happens in basketball, and we saw with the Lakers, it doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work. Leave Cleveland, go to another team, win, go to Miami, win, go to LA, think you can do it again. No, it didn't work out. Injuries, of course, are always a factor. That's stuff that's uncontrollable. Let's go over to the Canucks, and who's going to be their captain? I hear there's a surprise in the works.
There is potentially a surprise in the works here for sure. I mean, obviously, at this point in the offseason, they still haven't assigned the seat to anyone, which is why we're taking these guesses. After they traded Quinn Hughes to the Wild midway through last season, there was obviously the expectation that they should fill that role. As it currently stands, though, the Boston Bruins just spent last season without a captain. They had a lot more obvious candidates than Vancouver nearly does. Toronto went without a captain for a few seasons. Other NHL teams have done it. They are, technically speaking, what Jules Winfield would call in a transitional period. They just got a new general manager. They've got a new head coach. They've got Caleb Malhotra and several veteran free agents after one of their worst seasons in franchise history. The problem that they have here is there is no clear-cut franchise player in their lineup. They have Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk. They have Luke Shen and Brendan Gallagher. They have guys like Marco Rossi, Zeb Boyum, and even Caleb. But I don't think actually picking a captain for this disparate a group would be the right way to go at this point.
Yeah, you'll probably end up without a captain. If I were to make a captain, I think Luke Richardson's in for 2 years, right? I think he signed a 2-year contract. Wasn't
Luke Shen? Yeah.
Luke Shen, sorry.
Yeah.
Old Leaf.
Way old Leaf.
Freudian slip there. He might be somebody. Luke Shen is somebody that I might consider if he's there for multiple years for sure. If not, then it's questionable. Vancouver's biggest problem has been the locker room. It's common knowledge. It's not something that I or you have to prove to anyone. I think it's common knowledge that locker room had problems. Can they have a captain now at this point? Are they far enough down the line to be able to figure out a guy that can help bring all the guys together? That's the problem they're dealing with, right? It may be too soon. Having no captain, there's no crime against that. It's been done before. We don't know that one of the reasons why the Leafs maybe lack leadership in the 10 years that the core four were around is it because none of them were captains early. There wasn't a focus in that way. Is it important that you have a captain? These are all questions that only individual cases can answer, not all.
No, it's very true, and it's never anything that can really be set in stone. You got to sort of fumble your way through it and figure it out on your own. So at this point here, as we've already mentioned, it might actually be in their best interest to just not have one and just sort of ride out the season that way.
So do you think France is going to win the World Cup?
It's a very realistic possibility at this point. With disposing of number 6 Morocco the way that they did, with Spain advancing past Morocco, that's something else as well. I just want to see how everything shakes out over the weekend because it's going to be interesting for sure. And I think, if it weren't as proximately close as it was, I doubt I really would have paid as much attention to it as I have. But seeing as I have a little more invested in it because Canada was involved, it's one of those situations where I'm curious to see where it goes next.
Norway, England?
The English would be insufferable. The Norwegians would be hilarious. I just think that the best bet for it would be to, keep it relatively simple. Give it to one of the European powers.
Harland is an amazing. He looks like a Viking.
Oh, Holland is absolutely priceless. That kid is hilarious.
He's totally hilarious. He plays with tongue in cheek. Argentina, the most recent winner, they're the defending champs. They're up against Switzerland. Switzerland, it doesn't matter what sport they're playing. They're always a team you need to be concerned about, because if you're not, bad things happen.
Especially in hockey recently. Jeez.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, we've got Spain is playing France, and I guess because for the quarterfinals we have for the semifinals, I should say. I think Norway will go in, and I think Argentina will go in. And there's the joke about the referees are helping Argentina. Have you heard that stuff?
I've heard a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of refereeing. Soccer is out of my bailiwick, but from what I've seen, it doesn't look like it's been very good refereeing at all. It is what it is, though. You get what you pay for.
Absolutely. So I guess what I'm saying is, okay, I'm going Norway and Argentina. So, and France and Spain. I'm going to say Norway and Argentina are going to fight to play. I think it's going to be France, and I think it'll be Argentina against France, and I think France will win. They seem really together. They've done a really good job, and the goals against, they've outscored their opposition. I think it's 14-2 or something in this championship in the World Cup. We're done in Canada. There are no games left in Canada. And it'll be interesting. I really think France is going to win. They also might be a little hungrier than Argentina.
I'd also like to point out that so far this tournament, it took 649 minutes before Spain conceded their first goal of the tournament. So that's something to be aware of as well.
Yeah, they've got a great defense. All right. Well, Aaron, this was fun as usual. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game tonight. I'm looking forward. I'm finally getting a chance to sit and watch an Argo game live. I might even be able to join the post game, the interviews tonight. So today's a really different day. So I'm going to really enjoy the evening today and try to relax and enjoy a football game. And what I'll say about this is the Argos have a great opportunity to win tonight. The number one quarterback is not playing for Winnipeg. Brown is going to start, the former Winnipegger, the guy that played for Ottawa, that played in the semifinal against the Argos and lost. He has a little bit to prove. I'm sure he'll be fired up. So it should be a very interesting game. And hopefully, if you're an Argo fan, you're going to want to see a little more consistency from your quarterback, a little bit of patience. And the defense needs to fly around, but under a little bit more control than they have in the past. So it's going to be an interesting CFL game. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a good one to watch. I also think that Argonauts fans need to finally relax about Dinwiddie leaving the Argonauts or the Red Blacks.
0-5, Aaron.
That's an all-time oops if I ever did see one. But at the end of the day, exactly. At the end of the day, you know what? Everything will fall out as it should. I can't necessarily blame Dinwiddie for the position that he's currently in. They don't seem to have been able to string anything together offensively, so it's not really a surprise that they are where they are.
Absolutely. You're 100%
hopefully they'll
right.
be able to turn it around.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Well, he's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you all being here. We'll see you again next time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, when Aaron can make it.
The